In terms of the spectrum of dealing with people in the US, it goes something like this. So if that's your timeline, this is when you start looking for a property, this is when you buy your property. Now, pretty much everyone else you deal with is in this component here. Property managers are here. So in relative terms, these people are absolutely crucial to your investment decision. So pretty much do not cut corners in terms of how you go about screening your property managers. So you need to understand, and I've read so much about bad experiences that people have had with property managers. Having a good property manager can mean the difference between making a profit or losing your mind. You know, they are our watchdog for us while we sleep here in Australia. So if there are any hassles or problems that occur with your property, you want to know that they're dealt with in a way that you would expect. So the main game of property investing is to be able to have as little input into the management and everyday working operations of your property and still get a reasonably good return from it. So the best way to do that is to make sure that you're very clear about your expectations and that you communicate those in such a way that the property manager there understands them. So what I would say to you guys is absolutely take your time when it comes to selecting a property manager. The clearer your expectations, the easier it is to screen. And what I've actually included in the back of your folders, I think there's a printout, is some of the things that you would consider asking a property manager before taking them on. I'd also be asking for recommendations. In a number of US cities, they have what's called landlord associations, and these are a really good resource for actually asking, well, who are the good property managers in town? List out for your property manager what you expect them to do. One of the big hassles in the US is that because of the cultural differences, property managers actually feel that they're there to look after the rights and interests of tenants. So because it's a relatively, sounds odd, but it's a relatively young industry in terms of its evolution, it hasn't become competitive enough for them to really have raised the standard in terms of service. So there's a lot of people out there who just don't understand what we as Australian investors expect. Here in Australia, if we've got a property manager that works for us that we're not happy with, you know, we can pretty much change it pretty easily. Like, it's not a big deal. But over there, it's a bit more of a hassle and it's a bit more time consuming. So things that you might want them to do are things like collect the rent, find tenants, do all the repairs, handle disputes, if there's any kind of evictions that need to be taken care of, maintenance. So what I'd be doing is making sure that you do research on your prospective manager as well. So look at their website, ask other landlords, and look for local web resources, so independent comments. And you know, the US is just such a prolific country in terms of use of the internet. So generally, if you Google a particular agency, you'll tend to find some information as far as comments or feedback. I'd also be interviewing the prospective manager. And I know that sounds really odd, but in the same way as we screen other professionals, it's probably most important that we talk to our property manager as if they're going to be a long-term member of our team. You want to make it official. So there are a number of property managers in the US who won't even bother to ask you to sign a contract. You want to make sure you sign a contract exactly detailing all the terms that you've agreed to. You also want to include the length of time that you're going to agree to work together, the date for renewal, and any contingencies in case you want to decide you want to break that contract. In terms of other suggestions, I would be absolutely insistent on monthly statements. I'd be asking for references. And I'd also possibly be even saying to them, look, can you provide me a template of your monthly statement just to prove that it actually exists? You know, you don't want to get lip service from someone saying, yeah, no, we report monthly, and then just receiving nothing or having to really hammer them for it. So when we're screening, we need to ask them questions like, how do they stay in touch with people? How do they report? How do they screen their tenants? What other services do they offer? Do they have many overseas investors that they look after? You know, would they mind if you spoke with other clients? You know, how do they manage repairs and maintenance? You know, how and when are they going to remit money to you? What sort of staff turnover do they have? You know, how big is the team? What are their fees? What's included in their fees? And that's really important. How familiar are they with landlord-tenant laws? What kind of accounting do they use? Do they have insurance? And are they a member of any regulatory board? And is the fee negotiable? I always ask that to everyone. So, you get the sense that there's quite a long list there, and really you want to add to that and adapt that depending on what your particular concerns are. The number one reason for Australian investors exiting the US market is because they haven't been able to find good US property managers. If you look at forums and things, people talk about reports of dishonesty or theft, double dipping, unauthorised expenditure, failure to communicate, and communication problems. But all of those things can be avoided if you just take that time to screen people properly. Now, I've already touched on this, but in the US, property managers do culturally tend to favour the tenant. So what you want to do is find yourself a property manager that is more aligned with the Australian mentality that they're here to work for us. Australian property managers are very clear that they're here working for us and that we're the ones paying their fee. And they also get that if we're not happy with them, that we can get rid of them pretty quickly. So as you can imagine, peace of mind actually rates extremely highly for Australian investors, particularly because it's not that easy for us to jump on a plane and be there within a really short space of time.